Folks, thank you so much for tuning in today. I tell you, we've got a pile of things to look at. We're going to do it quickly and give you information and items that are behind the scene from mainstream media. Thanks for the input you're giving me and guidance on the type of stories you want. Let's jump right into it because the so-called ceasefire that Trump and the U.S. has proposed, not really lining up as far as Iran is concerned. One of the stipulations in the ceasefire that the U.S. is saying is that the Strait of Hormuz, where about 25% of all certainly energy products in the world moves through there, and the administration in the U.S. has said that's got to be opened up. There's now approximately, one report has 3,200 vessels are piled up waiting to bring product through to a needy world, and we're going to see where that is going to go. Things getting very tense as Trump has said there will be widespread destruction rain down upon the Iranian regime. They're trying to avoid saying Iranian people. It's not an attack against the people, it's against the regime. An amazing report has come out today. An Iranian woman has been able to leak out to the information out to the mainstream world. And what she's talking about in Tehran is the fact that there's checkpoints everywhere. People are used as human shields. The IRGC, that's basically the army of Iran, Iran's Revolutionary Guard, arrests, kills, murders. It is just vicious what is going on. But she said inside the homes, there is cheering and quiet dancing going on as people are believing that maybe, just maybe, this vicious regime is being brought to its knees. We're going to see if that continues to materialize. It goes against what some of the mainstream media has been saying, that this is a terrible thing that's being done to Iran, the people that are being held by the millions. And remember, this is how Marxist societies work. This is how dictatorships work. You continue to kill, kidnap, torture a few people, but do it on a regular basis. You will keep millions of people in check. The broader population, they have no firearms for themselves. They are completely helpless up against the roving bands of soldiers in their major cities. Let's see what happens. And I'll tell you what, if you're a person of prayer, a person of faith, be praying for them. And as I've said before, even if you're not a person of faith, the people of Iran need prayer for sure. Well, Melania Trump has come out with really an amazing statement. She's addressing straight on some of the ridiculous accusations that have been made about her and the Epstein files. It gives us maybe a bit of a glimpse as to why the Attorney General Pam Bondi was let go for not releasing information which shows that Melania Trump is never mentioned once in all these, as in terms of having any kind of direct contact with Epstein or anybody else. And she's come out so strongly on this that even the Daily Beast, which is a major outlet, millions and millions of people, has apologized to her and has retracted allegations about her and the Epstein files. So Melania Trump getting some public support for coming out very clearly and coming out against these vicious accusations, which are all being proven untrue. Well, on a different shift, you may or may not be aware, if you travel to California, there's a very popular coffee shop chain. It's called Philz Coffee. That's Philz spelt with a Z or a Z. And they've come out saying that they're going to pull all of the LGBTQ advertising that they have, all of the pride flags. They're getting vicious backlash from the so-called peaceful LGBT community. Now, be careful to note here, we're not saying, nobody's saying that they don't support the LGBTQ community. Philz Coffee actually does in very many ways, very supportive, but they say they're just getting tired of employees and others sort of waving their own particular flags, and they just want customers to come in and have a wonderful coffee experience. Who knew? What a radical approach. They did take some steps when some of their employees were wearing pins that said Free Palestine. And again, Philz is saying, look, we've got issues. Employees are entitled to their right of opinion, but we just want to deliver delicious, wonderful coffee to people, so we're shutting down. Cities and municipalities might want to take a lesson from that, as we're seeing an emergence among different cities and municipalities in Canada and in the United States where they're saying, you know what, as far as public areas, whether it's the crosswalks, whether it's areas of flags, we're moving to neutrality. They don't want the rainbow sidewalks, and they don't want the sidewalks being painted by the city with crosses on them. This type of thing. And so let's see if this kind of movement really takes effect and continues to grow. Well, talking about concerns on the sidewalk, Philadelphia residents, now this isn't just Philadelphia, this is in a number of cities, are starting to react against this incredible breakthrough or move ahead in technology where Uber Eats, you may or may not be aware, is showing off Avride. That's an autonomous delivery robot. Robots are roaming the streets for Uber Eats, delivering food. These foods, the robots lock up. They're only about 3 feet high. Only the customer can open them up and get the food, and they're safely delivering food. And people are starting to react. Some of them are kicking the robots. Some of them are flipping them over. And we're going to see, is this going to be a trend? Are people going to be okay with their foods being delivered by robots? One of the things that doesn't get mentioned a lot, the cost of hiring humans to do things. They say one of the reasons it's become astronomically and unrealistically high is if you have unions that are forcing wage agreements that are unrealistically high. And this is not a shot against union leaders, but just telling people to be aware here. Costs will increase on the human side so much that companies will move into a very expensive move in terms of robots. So keep that in mind when you are looking at what unions are demanding. Well, Artemis 2, the moonshot, the spaceship that's returning to Earth today, and everybody's hoping and praying for a safe delivery. They do have to do this remarkable thing of entering through a fireball heat shield as they come smashing through Earth's atmosphere, and everybody will be watching that very carefully. And if you know the astronaut Glover, who is the pilot, he is also black, and he's been getting there's been some comments on that isn't this a great breakthrough for blacks? And he has been saying simply, it's a breakthrough for everybody. Let's stop zeroing in and stop trying to get racist on it. Well, his daughter, Maya, has come out. She's posted a video. She's dancing happy and saying that literally her dad, she's proud of her dad, astronaut Glover, and saying her dad is out of this world. Great turn of phrase there. She got almost 22 million views on TikTok and Instagram talking about being happy with her dad. Well, I've just given you a comment about some people, Uber Eats going with the robot delivery process. The chain called In-N-Out Burgers, that's I-N and then a dash and then the initial N and then out. The CEO, she says that they are not going to compromise. They are not going to move to robot delivery. As a matter of fact, they don't even take, they're a multi-million-dollar chain. They don't even take online orders and send out. It's all customer-based, and they advertise, of course, their delicious burgers, and they are pretty good. I've tried, and they said they're not going to compromise. They wish everybody else well in the marketplace with the things that they're doing. They're going to stick to customer delivery and customer orders. They're sticking with that. You know what this is, folks? It just shows the great opportunities we have when you have truly diverse markets, when people and companies are allowed to make their own decisions on the type of marketing they have. You'll see competition, you'll see new ideas, you'll see innovation, you'll see costs kept to reasonable limits, you see everybody benefiting. So again, the marketplace coming through there, offering the alternatives. We'll see how In-N-Out Burgers does with their firm decision not to go robot. Well, one of the largest French fry companies in the world, they also do other products, McCain's. Actually, people might, in Canada, since it's a Canadian company, might be surprised to learn that McCain's produces, believe it or not, about 1/4 of all the French fries in the world. Anyway, it's been a famous family operation for a couple of generations now, having huge disputes within the families. Eleanor McCain is one of the daughters. She's saying that she's not allowed to sell her shares. She's taking it to court. It's kind of sad to see the breakdown. These folks have become very wealthy, and I don't begrudge that at all. They've also done incredible work. McCain's, when I was on doing trade discussions in India and traveling around India, here coming across a very high-tech operation, producing French fries. And what McCain's had done, they'd gone into a particular area here where families typically owned about 1 acre, and they worked, 16 hours a day plowing the field with rudimentary instruments, planting their various crops, and really hundreds of thousands of farmers operating for generations at barely subsistence and survival levels. McCain's came in there and said to many of these farmers, hey, if we give you a machine that you can ride around and plant potato crops, and you don't have to work nearly as long, you'll get the benefits of your rewards. We'll build a factory locally. They did all that, and in many of these areas you see these factories. I've been right in them. They supply maybe 250 people with well-meaning jobs. These 1 acre lots that they owned are now producing, and families can support their own kids. So McCain's has a pretty remarkable business record and business model around the world, and we hope they get these areas resolved. Too bad that they're going to the government and going to the courts, because again, you could get situations where the government then will come up with all kinds of laws which may go beyond and may cut into some of the innovative aspects of growing your own, as we like to say. Let's hope that that works out. Well, you may be surprised, our American listeners and viewers and Canadian listeners and viewers, how much of the world is actually moving to nuclear in terms of heating their homes. China has 3 huge cities that heat entirely on nuclear power. In Sweden, the it's called the Augusta reactor, that was started way back in 1963. Around the world, you've got Bulgaria, the Czech Republic, Hungary, Romania, Slovakia, Ukraine, Switzerland, many cities that are operating and getting heat from nuclear power. And Canada, which is a great source of uranium, again, when it comes to energy, very much behind the 8 ball. There is a lot of energy that's created, nuclear energy, in Ontario, but Canada, because of its oppressive regulatory regime, Canada, because it has for too many years listened to, and I'm talking about not environmental concerns, the extreme environmentalists and the extreme environmentalists in mainstream media who go completely ballistic anytime there's any discussion about, for instance, nuclear or even refined liquid natural gas. Canada, which could be saving the world, as we've talked about it so many times, with our clean LNG product and with the nuclear capabilities we have. Let's hope the government wakes up and really comes into more support with environmentally protected but clean energy sources, and stop falling behind the 8 ball. Canada could be leading in terms of its own economy, in terms of GDP, in terms of raising the income levels of people on the low income side, but stubbornly stuck to, let's call it, far left policies and far left concerns, which basically hate. They're Marxist, culturally Marxist. They hate to see business. They hate to see innovation. They hate to believe that individuals can be prosperous. Wish Canada would wake up on that effect. Now, Marilyn Gladu, that name is becoming household because she recently crossed the floor in Parliament from Conservative to Liberal, and she's actually getting a fair bit of scrutiny now. And they're bringing up, even as recently as you will know, we've talked about on this show 3 months ago, she was saying how terrible it was for anybody to cross the floor to go to another party, and that they should have to stand for re-election, have a by-election. So let's see if Marilyn Gladu stands by her remarks. It's unfortunate she's not being pressed more to do this, but let's see where it goes. And on the area of what keeps Canada from developing, you may or may not be aware that Prime Minister Carney has made a commitment that approximately 30% of the entire landmass of Canada is going to be hemmed in and not to be used for any kind of development. And this won't be the 30% that is barren, of course. It'll be 30% in which areas could really be used to advance human advancement. And this comes from, it's called the Kunming Montreal Global Biodiversity Network. Yes, you guessed it. It's as a result of the United Nations Biodiversity Conference. And what happens at these conferences, people from around the world, they all get pressed in together. It's usually, not always, usually led by the far left, and they get people to agree and make promises about how much they're going to do to not have anything to do with energy. It's called a 30-30 because they're saying by 30-30, by the year 2030, 30% of Canada's land mass and even ocean mass is going to be hived off and not be available for any kind of production. This is very questionable policy, especially as means of production have continued to advance amazingly in terms of being able to do so with low emissions and breakthrough new approaches. And Canada, unfortunately, may not be able to help the rest of the world with what could be amazing breakthrough technology, lowering emissions around the world because of these one-sided blind commitments. So let's see if we get some more reaction on that. Well, on the culture side, mainstream Gen Z is actually moving away from, a lot of people, myself included, moving in this area of podcasting and making available the news in ways that are immediate and hopeful that meets your needs for your wanting to know what's behind the news. Gen Z is actually the demand center in moving away from highly produced content and looking into what's called raw or unpredictable platforms, almost like going back to some early internet creation that was happening. That's good news for people like me. I want to be as professional as possible, get you the news, get it accurate, but I struggle. I go to my grandkids, actually, they're my biggest help in terms of how do I produce this, how do I say that, how do I make the production, and they're telling me, yeah, you want to make it as good as you can, but don't worry about it looking too super refined, just get the goods to us. And so we're seeing a move away from wanting highly produced content, and then there's a new tone among Gen Z when it comes to activism. They do believe in different causes and support different causes, but don't take them as serious. They don't take the causes and the activism as seriously. They combine humor. They combine the use of memes into advancing your cause. Well, there's been some breakthrough supposedly in trying to discover who is the creator of Bitcoin. Bitcoin, of course, beginning with an outline by somebody who was calling himself at the time Satoshi Nakamoto, was really the discoverer or proposed a system that could operate without world banks and without governments. And he helped to launch that in 2009 and then disappeared. Some people say that's really not the guy. Some people say he is. He's disappeared because of threats, of course. He's replacing what governments like to control. And then there's many in the crime area who want to find out more and more about Bitcoin and its founder and running into possible danger there. But they believe they've identified him, Satoshi Nakamoto. They're trying to find out more about him. It continues to be an area of mystery that's emerging just recently. Well, in terms of success stories, again, we follow faith-based movie production companies and television productions. The season 5 of The Chosen, and season 5 being The Last Supper, which of course zeroes in on the Last Supper on earth. While Christ was on earth before his crucifixion and resurrection. That grossed over $11 million on opening weekend, and it's pushed the franchise past $120 million total theatrical revenue. So obviously a thirst and an interest in faith-based productions. And just an update on the biblical film. It's animated, of course, about King David. That is roughly now brought in $85 million at the box office. That's from Angel Studios. My wife and I saw the movie. Great movie, very very historically accurate, sticking to the history and the archaeology. There were 2 items, and I might have mentioned this in the past, that I actually wrote to Angel about. I said, hey, it was all very historically accurate as it should be. You didn't have to make up stuff. If you're telling Bible stories, they're amazing enough as on their own. You don't have to add stuff to them. They had David in his younger years portrayed with purple hair standing out. Purple is not really the genetic reflection of most hair in the Middle East. So I asked them why they did that, why the purple hair. And then the story where historically he had, when he was a young shepherd, he had actually got in a battle with a lion that had captured one of the sheep. and he was able to free the lion, or free the sheep, and he actually wound up killing the lion in that particular struggle using his sword. But that was a little too sensitive for the folks at Angel Studio. So rather than just avoiding that, if they didn't want to upset kids with a picture of David killing a lion, just show him rescuing the sheep, they showed him throwing the lion over a cliff and then feeling bad about it, and he climbs down the cliff and sets the lion free. It's kind of heart-touching and warming, but it's not the biblical picture. So I'm saying to Angel Studio and others who are doing faith-based production based on biblical truth, you don't have to enhance it. It's amazing enough as it is. And I want to give points to Angel Studio. They got back to me. They said, hey, thanks for the input. We'll take that into consideration. Folks, it shows that you individually can have a voice, whether it's responding to somebody who's producing goods or a product or food or producing just about anything. Good operators will listen to you. Have a great day, folks. Thanks for listening to me, and we'll stay tuned in. We'll catch you tomorrow.